Tinfoil hat. Oh, what the fuck are you guys even talking about?
Global controls will have to be imposed, and a world governing body will be created to enforce them.
Welcome to Tinfoil Hat. We go deep, homeboy. Aaron, open your mind. Drink from the fountain of knowledge. There's lizard people everywhere. That's some interdimensional shit. Wake up, Aaron.
This is only the beginning.
Dude, you just blew my mind.
Are you ready to get your mind blown?
Good morning, Swarm, and welcome to Tinfoil Hat. You know I am. You know I'm here to.
Rock.
Join me as always, Xavier Guerrero, and on the ones and twos, Jay Nice, Juicy Nine, J Dog, Johnny Woodard.
Hey. Eclipse
Guys.
Master. You forgot Eclipse Master.
Yeah, Eclipse Master live from the Wise Wolf Gold and Silver Studio. That's right. Wise Wolf Gold and Silver Studio. Go to SamTripoli.gold. Use the promo code Tinfoil and get into precious metals. We have a really great show for you today. We have Benben, a.k.a. the Analog, talking old world, Tartaria, hidden history. It is nothing but bangers, bro. I'm telling you, it's pure fire. Real quick, go to samtripoli.com, hit the events. Going to be in Hollywood on the 11th for the Comedy Chaos. Okay, then I'm going to be in Morris Plains at the Dojo of Comedy June 20th and 21st. And then Broadbrook, Connecticut at the Broadbrook Opera House for the Tinfoil Hat Comedy Night and Swarm Tango, Eddie Bravo, Xavier Guerrero on the 22nd. And then the Comedy Club, the Kansas City Comedy Club, July 18th through the 20th. Anything else, guys?
Let's go.
Check me out on Twitter at Johnny Woodard, please.
Okay, let's go. Here we go.
You can't ask.
Enjoy it.
You can't spend 5
Anything
minutes
else?
promoting every
There we
date for the next 6 months and then
There
let
we
me say one thing.
go. Enjoy the show.
Drink from the fountain.
All right, let's get into it. Very excited to have this gentleman on. He's a researcher. Comes very highly recommended by Mark the Booker. We're very excited to have him on. Please welcome to the show, Benben, a.k.a. Analog. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Sam.
My pleasure. Ben, for those who may not be familiar with you and your work, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where our listeners can find you?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, like you said, I'm a kind of a do-it-yourself type when it comes to research, reading, whatever information, whatever occult rabbit hole you find yourself in. But yeah, people can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. 1_analog_9. My YouTube channel is The Archivist. It's kind of the title. And yeah, there's 200 plus videos. My main baby on that channel is Anomalous America, where I go state by state exploring interesting oddities, whether it's buried ruins or giants or mummies or
I love it.
petrified, whatever. Yeah, crazy shit.
I love all this shit, man. I love hidden history, man. I love it. I think it's incredible what they've told us and what's really going on. So thank you so much. So where do you want to begin?
Will you tell me?
So I have some notes from you, but it's very interesting to me because there's this whole belief that Tartaria is some sort of either Russian psyop or a CIA psyop to confuse us. What is your thoughts on hidden history, hidden empires, and all that stuff?
Wow. That's a big question. But to be quick with that, and Tartaria is the old world in a whole. Basically, for me, that represents a period prior to, I'd say, the mid 1700s, late 1700s, and it encompassed the entire globe. Tartaria wasn't just Siberia Russia. It was a term designated by Rome as people outside their sort of jurisdiction, realms unknown. And yeah, as far as architecture and, the advanced old world and all of those things, it's definitely something that's far more widespread than just that region that people are familiar with. Yeah, I co-hosted a radio show called Radio Tartary like over 5 years ago now, when this stuff was like kind of pretty much unknown. And after spending, hundreds, if not thousands of hours digging through maps and archives and images, I've come to the conclusion that we're dealing with a post reconstruction of Rome and a rewritten history. And when Rome fell, which a lot of people are familiar with this idea that Rome really just rebranded itself as a religion. And basically it took this old world symbolism, technology, everything, and over a longer period of time basically wiped out all understanding of this and kind of took those things and created what we would call modern day Catholicism. Again, loosely answered there, but yeah. The 1800s, basically America as we know it was repopulated. And I think this has kind of been the running play from Rome as we know it today. And I think it's taken place over all of the continents of the Rome as we know it over several hundred years. But I explore the 1800s and 1700s predominantly, and my main way of exploring that and expressing it to people is through American newspapers.
I love that. So do you buy into the theory that possibly like America and parts of Mexico were actually Egypt?
Certainly. I mean, they probably wouldn't have designated themselves as Egypt, but yes, absolutely. I've used that phrase in many of my episodes. Predominantly Southern California, Northern Mexico, Arizona. Yeah. Again, for somebody like yourself who probably hasn't seen any of my material, I start off my Anomalous America series in Alaska, and from frozen cities to Greek temples found in the side of mountains that wash away in an earthquake, and a whole Greek city is exposed.
Wow.
To 1,200-foot long petrified ships, to giant hairy reptiles that are being hunted by dukes from England. That's just one episode, and then you can go through. I've done 20 episodes now, and my last one was on Iowa. And yeah, every state is packed with, my sweet spot is giants, buried cities, ancient civilizations, stuff like that. And I think just about every state I've covered mummies, giants, and petrified, what I call titans.
So let's get into buried empires. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, again, I could say the entire realm is a buried empire. But again, narrowing the lens down to just kind of what my YouTube channel has covered. All of the American states have evidence of buried empires. And I don't mean Pueblos, Native Americans, Indians. I mean civilization on top of civilization. In my New Mexico episode, I cover material going down 3 levels of civilization where they find giant redheads, pygmies, mummies, you name it.
So, is there something in California where we can maybe drive through? Living in LA, you say there's a couple. Any empires in California? Anything crazy we can go?
Well, yeah, my California episode was one of my favorites, and I really only covered probably 10% of the material that I've been sharing over the last decade. But yeah, San Diego, just outside San Diego. I mean, you're not going to find any of this stuff. It's quarried. A lot of modern day quarries that are still owned and operated today were developed in regions where they were dismantling or breaking apart these structures.
Unbelievable, dude. Unbelievable. That's why I think most of these wars are about.
The mining industry of today is predominantly not just megafauna and trees, but large living creatures. As crazy as that is to hear. Again, going back to the petrified stuff that I touched on just a little, it's one of my favorite subjects. But when they find some of these carcasses or bodies of not just giant reptiles, but giant mammals and giant humans, sometimes I get lucky and I find ones where the petrifaction has crystallized, are turned into gold or copper or silver or radium, which is another sweet spot for my material, the radium material. But yeah, so depending on the environment at which the living organism was entombed, sometimes it's an electrical, sometimes it's fire, sometimes, who knows?
What do you mean electrical?
Are you familiar with the idea of like the plasma apocalypse or, the electromagnetic changeover events that people have talked about where there's a kind of short circuit that occurs, like the scarring in Arizona, right? The Grand Canyon. Have you heard of the idea that that's very much indicative of an electrical scarring?
No, please, let me hear that.
So maybe you've seen videos of it, but if you take like a battery or some high amperage and you run it through organic material, a big popular one is people do it to wood, and they create these patterns that look very much like rivers or leaf veins or the veins in human bodies. And there's a group of people, scientists included, that have shown amazing evidence, and the Grand Canyon is just the one I'm choosing, but there are examples all over the realm of scarification, electrical scarification. Quick synopsis, basically there was some large electrical storm that impacted the realm and left these scars on the earth. And the Grand Canyon is a perfect example. But in the modern day example would be that linemen, people that work on power lines, sometimes there's accidents where they experience the voltage and there's a short circuit. And these linemen have had their boots turned to stone, their feet turned to stone, their hands turned to stone, or parts of their body. There are ways of petrifying things rapidly in liquid. There are lakes that are composed of high mineral content that also can do this quite quickly. But, from the modern day standpoint, the explanation is these things take millions of years to occur. But it's quite obvious to me that a lot of these organic, again, animals or plants experience some kind of large electrical storm or apocalyptic type event. And when they were when they perished, their bodies were basically mineralized instantly. You've heard of petrified trees that are turned into all these different substances. There were forests in Arizona. Unfortunately, much of that area has been shut down, where you could go and see these petrified trees that are just laying all over the ground. Well, in the 1800s, they weren't just laying all over the ground. In fact, in my home state of Oregon, they had whole standing forests, 50 square miles of a whole forest that was petrified into different crystals, minerals, copper, silver. But yeah, so again, long-winded answer there, but
Do you buy into that? A lot of these mountains are giants. Some mountains, some stoning are petrified animals. Like we've seen, like what looks like lizards or snakes into the rock. Do you believe that?
certainly. One of my really good friends who I've done a video with on my channel, people can find it. It's an interview I did. His name is, he goes by Stellium 7. His name is Mike. He has a YouTube channel as well, Stellium 7. He lives in Spain, and he lives at the base of a mountain called Mount Go. And he's basically based his entire channel around exploring the fact that this mountain is actually a gigantic petrified elephant. And, you know, hearing something like that, it sounds quite ridiculous, but he has quite an advanced background and a medical background. He's a chiropractor, and the way he goes about showing you the scientific evidence to support his theory is outstanding. And yeah, we've been friends for 5-6 years now, and we've bounced these ideas off each other for so long. But the fact that he lives at the base of this mountain, you'd have to check out his material. Again, Stellium 7.
How do you spell that? Because he's not from America.
No, his YouTube channel is Stellium 7, but the mount is called Mount Go.
Oh, his channel's called Mount Go?
No, his channel's called Stellium 7.
How do you spell stellium?
STE.
STE.
I can do it by typing it with that. STELLIUM 7 with a just, you can find him on YouTube. My channel's, my interview with him is the first thing that pops up when I Google it. But yeah, so, but there are many, many examples of this. And so we take the petrifaction idea to.
Oh, that's the, wait up. We've all seen that mountain.
Yeah.
No. That's, of course, there are millions of really amazing examples that look just like animals. There's a lot of fabricated, photoshopped images out there. But yeah, I'd absolutely believe that huge examples being a mountain could be titans of the past. Again, going through petrifactions in each of my episodes, I have trees. They found petrified trees that are over 1,000 feet long. So again, the largest standing tree is in California today, Hyperion, and it's just under 400 feet, right? And it's twice as tall as all the trees around it. But they were finding trees over 1,000 feet tall that were petrified, turned into, again, all these different minerals. So just that example alone, finding a tree that's 1,000 feet long that's been petrified, well, that'll unravel, you know, Pandora's box. How do we have trees that are 1,000 feet long? Well, how do we have? I go as far as saying that a lot of these tabletop mountains are trees. And I've posted a lot in the past about spelunking, cave diving, and shown a lot of really amazing evidence that these mountains could in fact just be broken trees, and that these spelunking caves that these people are rappelling down are actually the arteries of giant trees. And you study again enough into that, and you look into cave systems and people living underground. Again, it spirals into a million subjects, mining especially. You know, people sinking coal shafts. Again, going through my channel, the 1800s, when we were really first exploring west of the Mississippi, these mining companies would, you know, they have their ways of identifying regions that could be rich in coal, and they would sink shafts down, you know, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 feet, because they want to find the deepest part of the coal seam. And the things they find in these shafts are unbelievable. Giant animals, giant people, buried cities. on and on and on.
Hey guys, real quick, I want to tell you about our boy James McMahon and Copy My Crypto. Listen, guys, has it pissed you off to watch crypto fly up in prices for a decade and you still have done nothing about it? It makes sense. Crypto is complicated and really boring. Well, here's the good news. You don't need to know a thing about crypto to make money like so many have. The CopyMyCrypto.com membership site shows you the exact cryptos that YouTuber James McMahon personally owns, which means you just got to copy him. It's like having a big brother who knows what he's doing. You don't need to know a thing about crypto or how to invest. Just simply copy along. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about James. He runs the Crypto with James YouTube channel, which has over 54,000 subscribers. In the summer of 2020, he told his viewers to buy 26 cryptos. Had you put $100 into each, it went on to be well worth $123,000. Of the 26 cryptos, his top pick of the year, the one he singled out called Phantom, went up 692 times from when he said to buy it, okay? That one call alone has retired a number of people, including guys in their 20s and 30s. Remember, this is public knowledge. You can go to YouTube and verify for yourself. So if you'd like to join the 2,800 members who have copied James, then pause what you're doing and head over to copymycrypto.com/TFH. That's copymycrypto.com/TFH. That's TFH. You'll not only find proof of everything I said, but my viewers will get a full access for just $1. Yes, you've missed out on Bitcoin, but there's over 2 million other cryptos. Do you really think you've missed out on all of it? Guys, don't waste your time. Go to the site and read it. Once again, that's copymycrypto.com/TFH. Guys, it's ended money worries for so many. It may just do the same for you. Copymycrypto.com/TFH. So what do you think this world is now? We've asked this our episode we just recorded, but do you feel like the giants fit into a flat earth scenario, that maybe we live in a puddle and that, that the surface is much bigger than we thought? Or do you think it still fits into the size that we think our Earth is?
Well, I certainly don't think that we're a ball hurling through space. I definitely prescribe more to, again, I try to kind of stay out of the Earth shape. I don't want to say I'm Earth shape agnostic, but I tend to lean more towards the flat Earth concept. I have quite a few videos that explore these ideas that people were talking about again in the 1800s. One of my favorite videos is Beyond the Ice Wall. It's an article about how they were aware of cultures that lived beyond Antarctica. And again, they didn't call Antarctica a continent. They called it an ice wall, verbatim. And they were aware of cultures that lived beyond the wall. In my Radium series, I kind of dive into this a little bit when I talk about what led to World War I and how I believe it was more related to radium. There was many things, but radium was a big one. The Germans were basically controlling all of the radium mines in the world, and they were creating what we would call today nuclear power. They were powering their submarines with radium. This is how they were able to travel the globe. They were powering their Zeppelins and their dirigibles with radium. This is how they were able to stay in the sky for basically ever. They didn't ever have to land except for, food and water. And I've postulated that the Germans had maps that showed the realm before the ice. I'm sure that maybe this is a subject you've talked about, or you've seen old maps where they show Antarctica unfrozen and it being densely populated. Quite a few explorers, when they went to Antarctica, they could see volcanoes. They found fossilized coal. They found proof that at one time that region was tropical. But yeah, so I've I've touched on this before, and I've hypothesized that the Germans, New Schwabenland, right? Their new territory in Antarctica was actually they were taking the U-boats under the ice wall. They had done a lot of exploring on the ice and found that it was too treacherous to try and go as deep as they could on land, and that I believe they were exploring under the ice for quite a few years. And there's different authors out there that have postulated that they actually abandoned the war front and that they were putting all their time and energy into their submarine naval fleet because they were more interested in what lay beyond the wall. And I tend to agree with that. So yeah, I do believe there's more beyond. When we talk about aliens, I don't believe in aliens. I believe in extraterrestrials, and that's just
Extraterritory?
Correct. People from beyond the wall. From a cultural standpoint, media, comics, video games, movies, this ice wall concept has become so many different examples exist out there. But yeah, it's definitely something that's playing in kind of the social unconscious. But yeah, I do believe that that's kind of a big held secret. I mean, what's the only treaty that's been honored by all these governments that have been warring with each other, right?
Yeah, 100%, dude. So what is radium?
Radium is it's an element. It was first discovered, quote unquote, discovered, although in my first two episodes, I kind of destroyed the whole narrative that this woman discovered radium. She was working for the Rockefellers. Radium was well known to the Austrians and to the Germans long before this Polish woman was granted the discovery. She was granted the discovery in the late 1800s. And
Maria Curie?
Madame Curie, yes.
Yeah.
And I talk about how that wasn't her real name, and they gave her a pseudonym that was like Mercury, right? Madame Curie. And that Mercury and radium have a very interesting relationship. I break down how, so my radium series, I cover how it was used in ships that were providing anti-gravitic like effects, that the Germans were building perpetual steam engines that ran forever. There were people in Southern California. I don't know if you've ever heard of the NIMSA group. They were a group of German expats that lived in Southern California in the late 1800s. They were experimenting with aircraft. Maybe you've heard of Walter Bosley. He shows that these images had Trump's name. This is probably where the research is kind of becomes the most heard, is that some of these early dirigibles that were described as having very odd ways of gaining flight and sustaining flight. Again, this is the late 1800s. But yeah, so radium was used, like I said, for those types of anti-gravitics and perpetual motors. Again, documented in a lot of my videos, to it also being called the Philosopher's Stone because it was transmuting other minerals. So part of the breakdown of radium is it creates helium.
Oh.
So the Germans were obviously aware of this, and they were able to harness multiple sides of its combustion, so to say, and that this is why the dirigible was so beneficial, as well as the submarine, because obviously the helium can be used to adjust ballasts and on and on and on. But then I go into talking about how it was also the fountain of youth. One of your past guests, Dr. Longo, me and him have done, 10 or 15 videos together.
Yeah,
and
sounds
this
like you guys are peanut butter and jelly. You guys work well together.
We're pretty good friends, and a lot of our research, what kind of brought us together was a lot of our research overlapped. And I too agreed that when we talk about, people looking for the fountain of youth in Florida, right, that it existed there, but the fountain of youth was actually these sacred mineral springs. When they first, quote, discovered radium, they started testing the water, and they found that healing springs all across the world, their healing quantities were actually being attributed to the radium. And that the Gulf of Mexico contains more radium than any body of water in the world. You know, that the true Fertile Crescent is the Gulf of Mexico. You know, again, connecting again your first question about America being Egypt, that the Mississippi is, you know, the true Nile or old world version of it. And yeah, we can traverse all the way up. My Anomalous America series, where I start in Louisiana and I work my way all the way up the Nile, the Mississippi, and I show every single state along the Mississippi is just dotted with incredible find after incredible find. Since we talked about coal shafts, they buried one in Missouri, and I believe at about 200 or 300 feet, their drill broke into an open space. The men rappelled down and found an intact city 300 feet below ground in Missouri.
Damn.
That sounds crazy, but again, I have many like that.
Do you think it's mud floods that cover these things up?
Right. So you asked me, and I had to try to summarize as quick as I could. What is this realm? You know, what do I think of this realm? There is a repeating factor to it. It's city on city. It's culture on culture. One knows nothing about the one below. In fact, one of my videos, I can't remember the title of it. Let me look it up so I can give you the exact name of it. Ancient Buried Races of the Americas, Cataclysmic Cycles, Mud Floods, and More. Reset after reset. This archaeologist was in Mexico, and he was, you know, working on the pyramids in Mexico. And he was trying to dig a well because he had hired all these locals to dig out from the tropical vegetation that had overgrown these pyramids. He was hiring locals to clear out all the vegetation, the vines, so on and so forth. And he was digging a well so he could get well water. And he kept breaking into separate open areas. And under this one pyramid complex in Mexico, he found 4 buried cities.
What?
Yeah. And each city had about 20 to 30 feet of earth on top of it, and then another civilization. And that video alone, again, sounds crazy, but this is the same thing I've been finding in, again, California, Alaska, New Mexico, on and on and on. We stand on the shoulders of giants for sure. And the size of the people tends to get larger the deeper you go.
Wow.
Same with the creatures.
Wow.
Yeah. So for your listeners out there, you know, I would just suggest starting with Anomalous America, Alaska. Again, why I started with that video is every single article in that video is absolutely mind-blowing. You know, again, from the 1,200 foot long ship to the buried frozen cities. They find whole cities frozen. They find a Grecian style city on a mountaintop that had been covered with earth. And there was either an earthquake or a landslide of some kind, and it revealed this whole city. And another miner is looking for claims. He's in kind of middle Alaska in summertime, and he stumbles upon a fully tropical area. Basically, the ground has been warmed by volcanic activity, and the whole rest of the area is frozen, or not frozen, but covered in snow. And, you know, there's this entire area where there's all this wild game and tropical vegetation. And yeah, I mean, that video just kind of kickstarts you into the whole series, and every episode has things that are crazy like that.
So I gotta ask you, I'm going through your channel. Where do you find these articles? Because these are all these aren't Photoshop. You can tell these are old articles, and on most of them, and some proof. Where do you find these articles?
So I use here in Oregon, I use University of Oregon, and I use the universities have really good search engines, and I use Library of Congress. Sometimes I prescribe. So when I go through my states, if I'm not having a lot of luck on Library of the Congress, I'll go check out their universities, and almost every university has a pretty extensive archive. Magazines, newspapers. Again, magazines don't go back as far as newspapers, so that's kind of my sweet spot. In some cities, they'll have like a subscriber where you pay a monthly fee. So again, throughout all of these series, I prescribed probably to at least one, if not two, cities in that state to dive into their archive, looking for papers. Because again, Library of Congress doesn't have every newspaper. They have an unbelievable amount, and their search engine isn't very good. A lot of these universities now have very advanced search engines where you can really narrow down what it is you're looking for. Library of Congress, if you do any more than 2 words, you really are going to stumble and not find anything. Whereas some of the AI on these university search engines have become very advanced. And yeah, I mean, you would be amazed what you can find with just a little bit of digging.
Those are publicly hosted. Why do you think they haven't been cleansed, the records there?
So this kind of goes back to what I think about this realm. I think there is a circular process to this all, and that kind of, again, not to get too quotey, but like, narrow is the path. For any researcher, and I'm sure some of you can relate to this, that you can hear all kinds of crazy stories like this, and you may not think twice about it, but until you like actually go and look at these things for yourself, that's kind of the whole process. And I think the digitization of archives and the more and more information being spilled onto the internet is not by accident. One of the biggest negatives, I suppose, people have is, people talk about yellow journalism. Of course, they write fake news stories now. Why weren't they doing that back then?
Right.
And, again, I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody, but at this point, and I've been posting newspapers for 10 years on Twitter. It wasn't until I was kind of talked into doing a YouTube channel by a friend of mine, and Greg at the Higher Side Chats, who I had discourse with for quite some time. And,
He's great.
I decided I should start doing videos on some of my favorite articles. And that's kind of how we are here talking today. So yeah, I've been clipping these articles for, again, over 10 years, like 13 years. And I've just started the YouTube channel in the last year, just sharing some of my favorites. And I have a playlist that I kind of try to stick to so I can help keep everything a little bit organized. So again, Buried Empires, that's only 2 episodes. And I'm talking about America being designated as Ireland the Great, exploring more of the background. This kind of ties in with you asking me about Rome and Tartaria. The Rome as we know it today is built on the foundations of an ancient culture. This ties in with the Etruscans and the Irish and who were they, and the Church of Iesha.
Can we get into that?
Sure. Yeah. So again, I answered his question there. If there's something more you want me to answer on that previous thing.
You don't have to worry about his questions.
No, the only thing I would say is, you said that it could be they could be there for a reason. Are you suggesting like a benevolent hand at work or something?
Well,
else?
Whether you want to talk about the simulation theory or whatever, everyone's individual opinions are going to vary on what they think the nature of this realm is. I certainly wouldn't shy too much away from simulation theory. I think it's more, obviously there's a design to it all. Do I think there's angels releasing information? Like, whether you look into how the internet was created or why it was created or whatever, it's no different than a knife, right? It can save your life or it can take your own life. And that's the same thing with information, drugs, whatever. And I think that there is whether you want to call it astrological, or there's kind of a blueprint to, again, just like I'm discussing these previous ages, that the slate is wiped clean and humanity restarts. I think it's the same thing with not only consciousness, but information, however or whatever form that information's put in. The written word is not that's relatively new in the span of time, right? Cultures handed down myth and history through song and word of mouth. So the written word is relatively young in the scheme of things. But again, my sweet spot being the late 1700s through the early 1900s. And it definitely seems like, especially from an American standpoint, we were literally just like born again, and we were relearning everything about the world. And that takes you into Tartaria, and it seems like the entire realm was hit by some kind of event, mud flood, many things, and that humanity kind of restarted. And I think that's probably early 1800s is where I would put that.
Wow.
Yeah.
You think the mud flood might have happened around the late 1700s, early 1800s?
Well, the restarting, and again, my lens is here, America. I think that the repopulation concepts were far more advanced in what we would call Asiatic or European countries. Again, looking at this from that time period that I just said, the newspapers give you such amazing evidence of this. For example, my last episode 20 of Anomalous America, I share a clip, again, a miner. They're digging down a shaft and they find a standing forest. It hasn't been blown over. The trees aren't knocked down, and it's buried. The entire tops of the trees are buried 20 feet. So they go down 20 feet of earth.
Wow.
They find a whole standing forest. And the author in this article, he says, whatever covered this forest filled in this area slowly. There wasn't some giant flood wave that knocked these trees over and laid them buried on their sides, which I have evidence of that as well. So basically, what people would describe as a mud flood, where they show all these buildings where there are 1, 2, or 3 stories of this giant building is buried under the earth.
Yes, we've seen that.
Where you have windows where 2 or 3 inches are sticking above the ground, or you have stairs up to the first floor, like most Capitol buildings of every major U.S. city in America, all over the realm, really. But again, just going through what I've shown in my videos, that there is ample evidence to show that there was an event called a mud flood, where not only buildings but whole standing forests were slowly inundated. It was a slow event. What caused that, how it happened, I have no idea.
Dude, that was very interesting what you just said right there. Stairs to the first floor?
Yeah.
Like, that's really interesting to me. Like, why would you have stairs to the first floor?
Look at every Capitol building in America. Not everyone, but almost all of them. You're taking stairs to the first floor.
That's so interesting.
What do you think about
my state capital, Salem? Every building's like that. And in the oldest images of my state capital, it's an absolute ghost town, but you have these giant monumental buildings with nothing around them, but mud and grass. And if you're like, okay, and they're on hills, so it looks like a building on a hill. And again, Oregon in the early 1800s, or well, again, this is like 1850s, 1860s. The population was like 8,000, right? So, and that's for the whole state. So we're talking that you got all this material together with horse and buggy, and you built this amazing stone structure on a muddy hillside. Like, and again, that's just one example.
Guys, I want to tell you real quick about how proud I am to be an American. This is how proud I am to be an American. I'm proud of this American company. That's right, Blue Chew!
There we go.
Blue Chew, an American company making American boners for American people who love American boners. Let me tell you about Blue Chew, boys, girls. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in a chewable tablets at a fraction of the cost, okay? You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or whenever an opportunity arises. Because when she says it's go time, you better go and take no time. Okay. You can take them anytime, anywhere. The process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you receive your prescription within days. The best part, it's all done online, so there's no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew tablets are made in the USA, and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. Bang. Or with a marching band, fireworks, bald eagles who are rock hard flying around singing the praises that someone's about to go to Pound Town. Everyone's loving Pound Town. Yeah, let's go. So here's what we need you to do. Blue Chew wants to help you have better sex. Discover your options at BlueChew.com. Chew it and do it. And we got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew for free when you use the promo code tinfoil at checkout. Just pay $5. That's BlueChew.com, promo code tinfoil to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring this podcast. Blue Chew, enjoy.
When I was in middle school, they used to have tours of Portland, Oregon, where you could go down into the subterranean. And we went down 3 stories in Portland. They told the stories about how sailors would be shanghaied and there were trap doors in the bars and drunks would get dropped down and then they would end up on a ship to China. And,
what?
That seemed, without a frame of reference, you're just like, wow, why are there 3 stories of these buildings? These buildings go down 3 stories. Why are there 3 basement levels? And this is almost all the brick buildings in Portland. I mean, you can go for block after block after block underground. And then after doing, again, my research into the Tartaria stuff and, again, this channel, you find that there are cities all across America and the world where almost all of the major cities, there is a subterranean, not only tunnel system, but basement levels of buildings that are completely uninhabited, or the people above them have no idea if they even exist.
LA's like that. LA is a giant train system that we don't use. Mm-hmm. And they're just like, yeah, we got to build a subway system. You're like, well, there's already one there. Why aren't you using that?
Yeah. So I have articles, again, from New York City where they're building subway tunnels and they run into another tunnel. And they're like, oh, we didn't know this tunnel was here. It's like, what? And that's Paris. I have newspaper articles in Paris, same thing. They're building a new subway tunnel. They hit another tunnel, an abandoned tunnel.
What?
And then I have another one in London, same thing. And the Paris one's the best because they say underneath Paris is honeycombed with tunnels, miles and miles of tunnels, and most of them are unidentified.
Okay, you brought up cities around the world. What do you think about world fairs? Are those real? Were those just made up?
Oh, here we go. We're gonna bring Johnny in.
Well, I was going to ask this myself because I wonder, because this would put you at odds with the newspapers of the time if you had a certain take on the World's Fair. So I'm very curious about that myself.
I think of the World Fairs as like indoctrination stations. You're bussing in a bunch of people into a realm that is freshly inhabited, so to say, right? Because the quote Aborigines that we murdered or kicked off the land and then decided, hey, we're going to build a city here, even though it's built on the foundations of 1, if not 2 or 3 other ancient cities. All the cities of America, the big ones especially, are built on top of other inhabitations. There's no better example of this than my Arizona episode of Anomalous America, where Phoenix, Flagstaff, just about every city in Arizona, in newspaper articles, they're saying, oh yeah, this city is just, you go down 10 feet and there's a whole nother building. Salt Lake City. Again, I have many examples of this in California. But yeah, I think they're bringing in all this stuff. Like relics. Like, oh, look what we found. Here's a mummy from Mexico. Here's a petrified tree from Arizona. And it's like this museum for a newly indoctrinated group of people. I mean, one who's familiar with the idea of orphan trains. Are you? I'm sure you,
100%. Very dark. Very dark.
Right. So you study orphan trains and you look into the Industrial Revolution of America and you realize that 80% of the working population in the quote Industrial Revolution of America, 80% were under 16. And that's on. It goes on and on beyond there. And you look at the amount of orphans that were being trafficked west of the Mississippi in the 1800s. It's unbelievable. Where are these children coming from? One of the first YouTube interviews I ever did was on baby farms, and this was like 5 years ago, before the subject was, pretty much blown up by a lot of other YouTube channels out there, where I showed newspaper articles. Again, this is my first time ever being interviewed by somebody, and I talk about how Europe was, the royalty of Europe had baby farms. This was publicly known and discussed, and the baby farms of some of these countries, St. Petersburg was the biggest one. They had 15,000 children, and this was public information they were sharing in newspapers. This person has 15,000 children in their baby farm. That was the terminology they were using in the 1800s, baby farm. So where are these people? Where are these parents? And from what I can come to the conclusion of is that a lot of these wars, whether it be the Civil War or World War One, or the Bolsheviks, these ancient cultures, again, like I was touching on, the people to come before Rome as we know it. The Irish. There's a lot of designations for them, but basically it was full slaughter, and their children were taken, sent to other countries, and given a new language and no culture. Right? You're far more likely to follow along with a narrative that makes no sense to you when you have, no grandparents, no parents. Yeah, you could tie this in too with, the expositions too, because, they had I'm spacing the name, but they had these rooms that you could go visit where they had all these babies in these.
The incubators, right?
Yeah, the incubator babies.
Yeah.
This is every single World's Fair. Incubator babies, where you could literally take home a baby. It was like shopping at the grocery store. Like,
yeah, dude, they had it at Atlantic City on the boardwalk. They had one of these things.
Right, and again, the most recent fantastic strengthening of this was Jerry Seinfeld came out and said that his father was an incubator baby.
What?
And that his father has no connection with any of his relatives, and that he was just taken by a family from an incubator at one of these places.
Oh dear.
So how is Seinfeld Jewish then?
Well, that's a whole nother thing. What is Jewish? Again, we talked a little bit about my radium work. I talk a lot about World War One and the motivations behind Germany and the foundation of the Nazi Party, and on and on and on. And when you take one historical narrative and you flip it on its head, and you realize that you can do that with just about all of them. And if you do your due diligence and look into things yourself, again, having this channel and reading and clipping as much as I have over the last decade or so, I've realized that just about everything in the modern educational system, from health to history, so you name it, the shape of the earth, astrology, it's all been completely flipped on its head. And it's kind of up to you to rediscover the truth. So yeah, again, the World's Fair
his
thing.
mother must have been Jewish, right?
I guess
Well,
no,
that's how
both
you
of
get
them
it.
were
It's from
orphans.
it's from
Both
mother.
parents were orphans.
That's very weird then.
Yes, I guess both the parents were
I
orphans.
mean, I imagine he's had genetic testing probably, but maybe he was raised, Jewish in the Jewish tradition.
Well, so again, that's why I was touching on what is Jewish. Now, the term Jew is a relatively new term. Hebrew, there aren't Hebrew people. Hebrew is a language, and when you look at the roots of the Hebrew language, it connects to a priest class. this priest class had a designation by many names, but is found worldwide. The Brahmins, these king or priestly titles of Khan. I'm sure you probably heard that they were very popular in Tartary. Kings or leaders of Tartary were known as the Khans. Well, when you look at the actual root of Khan, you find it has an Irish roots. And it's found in India, it's found in China, it's found in Russia, it's found basically all over the globe. And this priest class, the Khans, Caan, also in Mesoamerica, relates again to this Hebrew language, Paleo-Hebrew, Paleo-Phoenician. Again, studying languages correlates all of this stuff too, and it keeps pointing back to the same common source. That the Jewish culture and nation is pointing more to being a modern creation, and that Palestine and the quote Holy Land we know of as today is a complete fabrication. Yeah, I mean, we could go into a million things. 90 minutes isn't enough. But
listening. I'll listen to that for sure.
Yeah, Jew it comes from Yule, which goes back to Ireland. It goes again to many places, but this, the idea of St. Patrick, right? Again, to kind of just use an Irish myth.
Yeah.
St. Patrick is, St. Patrick's Day. He drove the snakes out of Ireland.
Yes.
Well, there's no snakes in Ireland.
Yeah.
Are you familiar? Right.
Yeah.
So what is that? Well, it's the serpents. Well, what is that? Well, it's the Druids and the Bards and the Brahmins, and it's this priest class that had a almost identical solar mythos that's found all over the world, and they were known as serpents or Druids, Bards, Brahmins. Again, the term is different depending on the language in that specific region, but they have the same solar myth, right? This idea of Jesus, the Son of God, the Son of the Sun, the solar deity. It exists everywhere, right? All of these different cultures have the same idea of a son born of a virgin, right? That's everywhere. Every continent has it, and every culture has that. And once you start bridging the gap between their myths, you find that their languages have a lot of similarities. And that's, again, going to what we were talking about, how Rome didn't fall. It rebranded itself as a religion and basically rewrote the history of everything we know of today. And then again, my kind of goal or vision for my channel or what I'm doing in my own life really is just to dig up the old bones and reconstruct what I believe is a more clear picture of history.
So I have this whole theory that there is a giant psyop being waged against blacks and Irish, and I study them, and we had a guy who's a really funny comic out of New York. He's Irish. I've had him on my show. I tried to explain to him this, and it's so interesting, Caleb. It's so interesting the way he saw it, because I told him, I go, dude, St. Patty's Day is a celebration of a genocide. You're celebrating a genocide. And what he said to me was, Colum is his name. Sorry about that, Colum. He's funny. He's one of my favorite young comics. And he was like, nah, because we beat him. And I go, dude, that is some straight up Stockholm syndrome shit right there. And I talked about this on Rogan too when I brought it up, because he just had a joke that I thought that the discussion of what St. Patty's Day is really about would fit better in with his joke. But when I look at the Irish and I look at the blacks in America, I just think of like how there is this giant psyop being ran on these guys to function in low vibrations. When you study like Irish, what do we think? Soccer hooligans, drinking, being retards, doing stupid shit, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like, this is Sam speaking, nobody else. When we think blacks, what do we think? Hip hop culture, fucking crazy shit like that, And
We'll
I'll end
start
it at
hip-hop.
that description, but so I don't want to get. I mean, I'm all about it. Come at me, but it's just the truth. And when you study them, the Moors and all that stuff, and like the discussion of whether the Irish are actually the lost island of Atlantis and the Atlanteans, and this long psyop to make them dumb and stupid, or worship dumb and worship stupid, and promote this kind of lifestyle that people are now waking up to.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's again, it's just a big web, right? When we talk about the Nazi Party or World War One, you know, there's no coincidence that they used the swastika, an ancient symbol found not only in Ireland but strongly in the American Southwest. And yeah, when you talk about blacks and the Irish, well, there were a large amount of, quote, Irish surnames among the black population in the early Americas, late 1700s, 1800s. And there was no slave. There were a huge amount of Irish slaves. Because this is where it gets into slavery and indentured servitude. Are you familiar with the term indentured servant?
Yes, I think
so. There were actually more Irish slaves than there were black slaves in America at one point. Many of the, quote, black slaves, as we know of in a census record, were actually indentured servants. And basically what they did is that's how they would transporting them from a lot of blacks living in France, living in Ireland, were basically kicked out. Spain, the Moors, you mentioned the Moors. Sephardic families. They landed in Florida. They landed, you know, in the South predominantly because they were far more, you know, the South was far more open to those cultures. The Irish, Cajuns, Acadians, on and on and on. But yeah, there's a reason for that. Like you said, that the Irish and the blacks have been persecuted the most. Well, I mean, they put up the biggest fight against Rome. And, you know, they lasted for a very long time, the Moors especially. You know, the Columbus and the 1492 nonsense, well, that was all kicked off by the, quote, Jews, the Irish, being kicked out of Spain. The Moors, the Jews. Again, Jew had a completely different definition in those times than it does now. It wasn't a racial group. It was a class of people, and you brought up the music too. Well, the Irish are, you know, in this time period, were the most musically oriented culture there was. But yeah, so again, this is the whole rebranding. And, you know, 1492, Columbus wasn't looking for a new world. He was chasing the remnants of these families. Again, many of the old bards of Ireland considered America Ireland the Great. And, you know, old Masonic literature verbatim says Atlantis isn't an island in the ocean, it was America. And that the narrative was created that there was this sunken island to get everyone's attention away from America. You know, the Egyptians say their homeland was the Red Lands in the West. The Irish have a very similar explanation. And when you study Mesoamerican culture, you find that there was a civil war in early Mesoamerica, Mesopotamia, and that a queen fled to Egypt and brought the, quote, Mesopotamian culture with her to that region, the Mediterranean. So when we talk about old world versus new, you know, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, all that has been rebranded very recently. And that's, again, there are dozens of books about this, and it was well written. And again, in these newspapers, we're all rebranded and renamed. And that Rome, as we know it today, went to very great lengths to rename these regions and reclassify it, basically, literization of the Bible. And have it be in this realm. And yeah, I in a lot of my videos, I call America the true old world, again, like you asked me originally, is America Egypt? More mummies are found in America in this time period that I cover by 1,000,000 miles, and that many of the mummies in European museums were actually stolen and rebranded from America.
What?
Yep. I reshared an article that I posted many, many years ago, quite recently, about a cave in northern Mexico where they found thousands of mummies. In my Anomalous America Kentucky episode, I bring up an old article where they found so many thousands, again, thousands of mummies, that they were just burning them because they couldn't transport them. They were just lighting them on fire. This is the Mammoth Cave in Kentucky. Probably familiar with that cave. It was a giant tomb full of thousands and thousands of mummies. But yeah, I got off subject there, but
No, there's no way getting off this subject. It's the best. It's unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable. So you said that the Holy Land isn't the real Holy Land. Where do you think the real Holy Land is?
well, again, since I've already kind of touched a little bit on the idea of Celtic mythos and Irish myth, the Church of Iessa, or Aryan, Ireland, Iran, the Aryans, right? The name Aryan and the kind of psyop that was the Nazi party attaching themselves to this Aryan superior blue-eyed white race. It wasn't a fair-skinned thing at all. There were Aryans all across the realm. Aryans found in China, Iran, Ireland, America. Well, yeah, I'm sorry. What was the question? I lost my place there.
Where do you think the true Holy Land
It's a mythopoetical story. It's not a actual place. Does that make sense? So Rome, as we know it today, took the Irish Christianity story, the death and rebirth of Christ, which is a solar myth, astrological representations, the 12 apostles, on, and decided to rebrand that story into what we would call, the Bible of today, and created, instead of it being, a story of you, because the Bible is just a story of you, each one of us. It's not an actual representation. Again, this is from an Irish explanation. The Church of Iessa, the Council of Nice took their story of Jesus, death and rebirth story, and created what we would call the modern Bible of today. And part of that whole thing was manipulating timelines, right? Maybe you've talked about this before with other people, but the adding of time, the manipulation of calendars, the plus or minus 1,000 years that we're not really in the year 2000.
What year do you think we're in?
Well, I don't know for sure. There's so much manipulation. I can't say for sure. But again, going along with this Tartaria stuff, and maybe some of your previous guests have mentioned it, but if you go far enough back in records, especially maps and old artwork, there was no one. It wasn't like 1362. It was I or J. And the oldest versions are J. So like the year J, 362. Have you ever heard of Flamenco? Who's a Russian author that wrote a lot on this idea of Rome manipulating timelines and adding 1,000 years.
Yes, I have, but you can go into that.
So yeah, part of, again, this rebranding of, quote, the Middle East and the old world and the Bible lands was, as quick of a synopsis as I can give, they had to literalize the text, whereas there is no actual place. Golgotha is the skull, on and on and on. You could break down the Bible and show it's just a mythopoetical story of your own journey to realization, to truth, whatever you want to call it. And that they wanted to create it into a physical reality. That here's where Christ died on the cross, on and on and on. Here are all these places throughout the Bible. You can take a Bible tour and fly over here and go see all these places. So again, as we've talked about these buried cultures on cultures on cultures, and that we're looking at a civilization or a realm that seems to have a cyclical nature to it, the idea of attaching these places, these specific places, to one story and it being a literal definition, it falls apart once you, again, I mentioned timelines, but just looking at some of the fossil records and the buried empires stuff that I cover in my channel, all that kind of falls apart. In fact, another thing I posted recently was England hired this archaeologist they wanted him to find the foundations of Rome, or foundations of Jerusalem. So they sent him there, and his report, again, this is in newspapers in the 1800s, his report is verbatim: Jerusalem is built on the foundation of one, if not two or three civilizations wiped and then started again. And that's Jerusalem. So even the, quote, holy cities from these books are the same narrative that I've been sharing all throughout the realm, that it's civilization, wipe, civilization, wipe, civilization.
What do you think about Atlantis?
What do you mean? We just talked about it.
No. Huh?
Yeah, we just talked about Atlantis.
So yeah, Atlantis, I definitely think there's far more evidence to suggest that Atlantis is America. At least, Central America, South America, North America is included in that. I don't think it's a sunken continent. Atlantis also, I tend to go also with Donnelly here. So we've talked about cultures that had very similar, quote, religious ideology, solar mythos, that concept existed all across the realm, and you had different cultures expressing that same story in different ways. Sheba, on and on and on, all these different examples. And that Atlantis was this culture. It wasn't one specific island. I don't agree with that at all. That it was a dispersion, so to say. And Donnelly described Atlantis as covering the realm and basically encapsulating a merchant trade class culture that was, fairly advanced. Again, I mentioned radium, and I've discussed in some of my videos how I believe radium was kind of this hidden technology that was part of this, quote, Atlantean culture, free energy, on and on and on, advanced travel. But yeah, again, looking at old Masonic literature and, occult literature, Francis Bacon, so many examples they describe as America was the hidden Atlantis. That's why it was off limits to many of the seafaring peoples of the Mediterranean. The, quote, Phoenicians, who were just Finnish, Finn, Aryan, Irish, Hebraic seafarers who were controlling the oceans, essentially. But yeah, so the remnants of Atlantis, quote, remnants, are found all over the realm. And I cover some of those in my videos, whether we talk about the Basques or the Berbers or many of these cultures of not only Mesoamerica, quote, Mexico, but North America as well.
That's incredible, dude. That's incredible. So I have this line. I don't know what it means. Annular vapor canopy avatar. What is that?
Okay, yeah. So you asked me about Titans, and I mentioned my friend Stellium, who has done the amazing video breakdown about Mount Go, showing how he believes it to be a giant petrified elephant. So yeah, what you just read there is a synopsis, right? So I mentioned tropical foliage in Alaska. I mentioned tropical foliage in Antarctica. And then you said Avatar. Me and him have tossed around the idea forever that there was an age, which again scientifically was discussed in the 1800s, called the annular system, or they called it a vapor canopy, and that Earth, or this realm, was enveloped in a canopy of vapors. And I connect this to this age of the Titans, so to say, when not only animals were much larger, but man as well, and that it corresponded with the age of giant trees. To give you an example, when you look at a tropical rainforest, they have vapor canopies there. They create their own ecosystems. The foliage is so densely packed that you can stand on the floor and rainwater, won't actually hit you in certain places. And 90% of all life is in or around the trees, meaning the tree is home to so much different varied life. And that, to expel this, hundreds of orders of magnitude larger, you make the trees 1, 2, 3 miles high, and you have a vapor canopy that covers that. And that inside of that, you create a much denser atmosphere, right? You've heard of the idea of what are those chambers you can go in where they can change the atmospheric pressure? I'm spacing the name of them.
Was it barometric? Isn't that what it's called?
Well, they're chambers. Athletes use them. Almost all professional athletes.
Cryotherapy?
That's what's
not
called. No, it's a. I thought it was a barometric thing. Or I'm sorry,
It's
a hyperbaric.
It's a
hyperbaric
room.
chambers.
Hyperbaric. Thank you. Hyperbaric. So created a hyperbaric effect where oxygen levels were much higher. They've proved this in coal samples again in Antarctica, Alaska, that the whole realm at one point in time, and I go as far as to say that a time period very close to ours, not millions of years, like they want to say, dinosaurs and all these things where they can keep stretching these fossil layers, the Mesozoic, Paleozoic, on and on and on, right? Where they can add 100,000 years for this, 100,000, a million. Anyways, so the vapor canopy existed, density, oxygen levels were much higher. When you look at the fossil records of some of these giant reptiles, they had very small respiratory organs for their size, meaning the oxygen levels had to be much higher. Same thing with this megafauna. When they find these tropical petrified or coal, right? Because coal is just organic life that has broken down. What they'll say it takes millions of years, but you can actually make coal in an hour. And with the right circumstances, you could probably make it much quicker than that on a mass scale. So yeah, giant trees, a vapor canopy with giant animals and giant people. To have that same giant stature of all life, right? You need a much higher oxygen-rich environment, and a vapor canopy would provide that. Now, I have videos on my channel again talking about the vapor canopy, and the authors say that in this vapor canopy, that the fall of the vapor canopy through some kind of cataclysmic event is actually Noah's flood, or the most recent story of the deluge. And that when this vapor canopy fell, it's what created the deluge and wiped these creatures, big and small, people as well. The story of the giants, some survived this flood, right? The biblical story. There's definitely some truth in that. And again, the things that they're digging up tend to support this. But yeah, so the Avatar age, you look at the movie like Avatar where, they're going to a distant planet, right? Or I say we were possibly invaded again by these extraterrestrials, people from beyond the realm, and that the fall of the vapor canopy, these same scientists say that when this vapor canopy fell, it's what contributed to the ice age and the ice wall. And that in this vapor canopy age, like I was describing to you earlier, where if you look at old enough maps of Antarctica, they show city names, creatures, people, villages, all kinds of stuff down there. And that, like I've shown throughout all of my episodes, they find evidence of tropical foliage, very large tropical foliage from Alaska all the way to Antarctica. So supporting this idea of the vapor canopy, and again, going to this concept of the Avatar age, when you see a movie like Avatar, where you have these giant blue giants who are living amongst these giant trees, and you have this invading culture who is looking for a very rare mineral that actually exists at the roots of these trees. Well, again, like I was connecting with you earlier about the petrified trees, they find whole trees that are turned into gold and silver and copper. I can't remember if it was Arizona. One of my episodes, they find literally a whole tree that's 90% copper. Now, how is that possible? Well, depending on the environment or the temperature, who knows what happened when this event occurred, it created that transmutation effect of this organic substance into these minerals. And that, again, the mining age of today is scraping up the remnants of giant people, giant animals, and giant organic life, trees, plants. Yeah, so the Avatar reference is, perhaps that's much closer to this previous age that I've described throughout my videos. That truth is stranger than fiction, and that a lot of these, quote, fantasy sci-fi things are touching much more on truth than they appear to be.
That's incredible, dude. That's incredible, dude.
So like we talked about when you brought up buildings, like can I drive through some of these ancient things? I have articles and I covered them in I believe it was the Mississippi episode, that they built a lot of the courthouses. So they found this ancient wall. It was called the Great Wall of Mississippi.
What?
Yep. And they theorized that it ran from Mexico all the way into Michigan. And there's proof of it in Texas. There's proof of it in Mexico. And it's in some places hundreds of miles long. Rockwall, Texas, my Texas episode, I covered the rock wall. But anyways, they find a farmer has this wall on his property. He's like, yeah, who knows what this is? I've just been stealing stones from it. Well, they quarried it. The stone was so perfectly cut and square, obviously made by man, but it was buried. They dug down 60 feet and they never found the bottom. So it's a 60-foot tall wall.
What?
That they took apart and used the stones to build buildings in downtown, one of the cities in Mississippi.
What? What's the name of the wall?
I think it's called the Bradley Wall. Is it that one?
So there's Rockwall, Texas. This wall is still visible. You can actually go there and see it. This is a continuation of that wall, in my opinion. The Mississippi wall, they completely took apart. I don't know if you guys have seen some of the videos going around on social media now about the giant wall in Montana.
Oh my God.
No, I haven't seen that.
Crazy.
You should look up, maybe you could just look it up right now, but there are some people going to, it's in the middle of nowhere, Montana. And these people have been going to it, and now the land has just been bought by, guess who? Rio Tinto, one of the largest mining companies in the world.
Of course. Now, do you think they're the miners? How are they funded? Would you say, are they actually doing some legitimate mining, and then this is kind of why they're allowed to access the land, because they provide this service of destroying history? What would you say?
I'd say it's a mixture. Most of these mining companies are old money, just like finance, just like the oil industry. All of these major industries are, again, follow the money. They go back to the same, quote, founders of, American enterprise or the Industrial Revolution, and on and on and on. And yeah, it just gets to the point of how much of it could be coincidence.
That's supposed to be the wall.
Damn.
So it's 1,000 feet tall and stretches for more than 12,000, more than
Game of Thrones.
a dozen miles.
That's some Game of Thrones shit right there.
Yeah, that's nothing. There's actually video on social media too about one that they've seen in Siberia. Pilots have been filming it. These walls exist all over. The Great Wall of China. In fact, this Mississippi Wall, the authors of this article go as far as to call it the Great Wall of Mississippi. And they say that it is such a perfect construction. And again, like I said, they dug down 60 feet and never found the bottom. This is like Rockwall, Texas. I believe the farthest they ever got was 60 feet and they never found the bottom.
Is it the Brandywine Wall?
Yep, that's the Brandywine. I have a video on it on my channel, again, for your listeners that want to look into that more specifically, where I just dive into that wall. But I cover it in my Mississippi video. Yeah, it's called the Brandywine Wall.
It's fascinating because they're desperate. Even the archaeologists and geologists who work in the mainstream, even those that want to suggest that humans were here outside of the narrow band of time, which I know, I mean, it's, as you're suggesting, much more recent. They just won't give an inch on even that. So you know that there must be, I mean, they must be desperate to keep these ideas that you have, out of the mainstream if they won't even give an inch when a guy says, oh, maybe humans didn't cross, from Siberia, but maybe they were here, from some other route, which has, been in the news recently.
Yeah. I mean, the whole idea that America was populated most recently is nonsense. Again, just by some of the examples I provided for you. Just looking at that again, the video where I talked about in Mexico where they were trying to dig a well for water and they found 4 buried cities. Well, the bottom city had Chinese hieroglyphics on it, and that's again a whole nother rabbit hole to go into. But yeah, I mean, wow. These walls are all over America, and it's not just walls; it's giant buildings. Arizona and Colorado are my favorite, and New Mexico. They found a building in New Mexico that had 3,000 rooms. In Colorado, they found a building that was 6 miles long. So,
what's the name of the building?
Well, they're gone, or they're on government land. I have another video that talks about in Nevada, there was so much mining underground that you literally rode trains underground. This is the 1800s to different cities, and all along Nevada, hot desert above, no population, but below ground Nevada, city is everywhere. And I theorized that all of the deep underground military bases are old world, and they were taken over relatively recently. And they're all interconnected. I talk about the mound systems predominantly along the Mississippi, but these mounds are found in Alaska, Florida, California, Oregon. Every state has mounds essentially, but the really big mound complexes like St. Louis and Cahokia, again, right across the river. I have a video in my Missouri episode when they were digging the pylons for the bridge that crosses from St. Louis to the Illinois side of the Mississippi. When they were digging the pylons, they were blasting the bedrock to build these pylons to support the bridge. And one of the, dynamites went off and it blew a hole into a cave. And they sent men into the cave and they found it was a tunnel. And the tunnel was actually a highway that went from the Illinois side to the Missouri side. And they found that this tunnel connected the mounds. And they found all kinds of crazy shit, Egyptian statues, Coptic carvings, Egyptian style hieroglyphics. I mean, again, the examples are endless, but that's just one. I theorized the mounds are actually, we talked about the mud flood, right? Well, we talk about these earthen mounds. Well, many of them are stone and they're pyramidal, but they keep them buried in this earth. So they can just say that these Native Americans just scooped up dirt and made this mound, when actually many of them, especially Texas, Missouri, Mississippi, Louisiana, are stone and they're pyramidal, and they connect to an underground subterranean highway. And that, the ancients were aware of whatever you want to call it, turbulent times on the surface level, and that they retreated underground. This is kind of like the pyramid bunker idea that I've discussed on a few different other podcasts that's become relatively popular.
What is that theory?
So I share an article from the 1800s. He was actually the Egyptologist for Britain for over a decade, and this is his theory. He found that the Giza pyramid and many other pyramids around the world are coated in salt. And that he theorized that these pyramids all had to be under water, ocean water, salt water, for such a long time that the salt deposited in the thick crust on the outside of these pyramids. and that he said the pyramids are vaults into the subterranean. And he goes as far as to call Noah's Ark isn't a ship. It's actually an ark is a doorway into the underground. And he said the Giza pyramid is a door into the subterranean world where these people retreat. And you take that same story, and I posted many other links about this, you know, the Navajo, the Ute Indians, many other, quote, Aboriginal Native Americans say, yeah, an advanced culture built these pyramids, and verbatim, they said it was to survive floods. So you have cultures in America saying the same thing as a gentleman in the 1800s who's an Egyptologist working for England, saying the same thing. And again, like I mentioned to you with some of these articles I found about these mounds, many of these really big mounds all go into subterranean networks, just like these, you know, mining, deep underground military bases. It's all interconnected. You know, like the idea that you can drive a semi from the East Coast to the West Coast underground. I think, you know, you could walk in these tunnels just the same 200, 300, 400, 500 years ago.
And they've shut that down. There's no possibilities of that now.
Of course. No, you can't excavate. No, it's all, you can't excavate anything. Can't excavate anything. That's why these articles are such a treasure trove, because there's very little oversight. And when there is something that's found that's amazing, how long does it take for a telegraph to reach the Smithsonian, for them to put a guy on a train or a horse or whatever and get them out to these desolate locations, right? Because that's another series I have in the works. I'm going to do a whole series talking about the Smithsonian and all the things they've covered up. I have an article. I have a few articles about what I call changeover survivors, or these animals, these crazy animals that aren't like anything that survived today, but some of them survived this cataclysmic event or a few cataclysmic events, and that they went hunting for these animals. You know, like a lot of the, you know, nobility, presidents, you know, Theodore Roosevelt being the most famous, but there were many before him, dukes. The big hobby in this circle of people was hunting these crazy rare animals. And in one of my videos, I share an article publicly posted in the early 1900s. The Smithsonian was offering $5 million bounty for the dinosaur of the Congo. That's what they called it, a giant lizard, the dinosaur of the Congo. So the Smithsonian was paying high dollar bounties for whatever, something you dug out of the ground or something that was still alive. And where it went, who knows?
Sheesh. Just history is a lie.
Yep.
It's a giant lie. And what do you think the purpose of the lie is?
Control. I mean, again, talking about money, follow the money, right? You can always follow the money, and you're going to find it connecting to these same groups of people. That's kind of how I got my feet wet in this situation. Just a little bit of background. 2007, I had a motorcycle accident and was nearly paralyzed. And I had an out-of-body experience during the accident. And I spent the next 7-8 months of recovery trying to understand what that was that I experienced. And that kind of kickstarted my whole drive. And it started with consciousness, how consciousness works. What is death? What's the afterlife? What did all these other cultures say about death and the afterlife? Blah, blah, blah. And then that was just, you know, it started from there and led me down, you know, finance, religion, politics, history, on and on and on and on. So, yeah, like you were saying, everything is inverted essentially. And that you can basically take, you know, the commonly held idea of whatever the subject is, and if you literally invert it, you're probably closer to the truth.
That's so true, dude. That is so true.
Are you comfortable sharing that out-of-body experience? Is that something you talk about?
Yeah, I've shared it before. It wasn't, I didn't see God or angels or anything. Like I said, I had a motorcycle accident, and I lost control of my motorcycle and went head over and landed on my head and my neck.
Ooh.
As I lost control, my body left, or whatever I was observing, I watched my body and the motorcycle accident happen in slow motion. And then I was pulled back into my body as the sirens and, paramedics arrived. So yeah, I didn't talk to anybody or see family members or anything like that. I just left my body and observed my physical body having this accident and sliding across the cement. And then, yeah. So I met.
What did that do to you?
Yeah, was there any? Did you have a feeling of like hyper reality, or did you feel as yourself in that moment? I'm very curious.
No, it was. There wasn't like thought, if that makes sense. It wasn't like, oh wow, this is incredible. Kind of like the narration that's provided in movies or whatever. There wasn't anything like that. It was just calm. There wasn't any sound, and everything was in slow motion. That's it. So I tried to. Again, like I said, I ventured down the path of I got books about other people's near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences, and I found that this kind of near-death threshold that people experience, it's really common. That's how my mother just kind of displaced it. She's like, people in these situations, they have these experiences. But to me, it felt beyond like a hallucination, if that makes sense, because that's kind of how it was portrayed to me. It was a hallucination. But yeah, so that accident kick-started everything to this day. And, like Sam was just saying, everything is a lie. And, you kind of go through these different stages of emotions and anger and feeling kind of like powerless. And for me, I'm sort of at this stage that I feel like it's all happening the way it's supposed to happen.
Okay, final question. Who's Mason on the the license plate?
That's my oldest son.
Oh, okay. Bang. Nice.
Yeah, I know people think I'm a Freemason, but my last name starts with a G, and my oldest son's name is Mason.
I'm like, don't be Jan. It's a G, and it's a G.
I would get stopped. That was on I had an old '66 Coupe de Ville, and that was the plate for it, and I would get. People would ask me at gas stations, or other Masons would, are you a part of the lodge or whatever? Or people would say weird shit, or I get flipped off. Yeah, it's just my oldest son. So. All
right. Well, man, great conversation. Loved it. Listen, I'm all into like timelines being fucked up, stories are being fucked up. So yeah,
the hard thing, and again, not to invite myself back, but the hard thing when you have such a wide range of material and there's no like specific thing I cover, you could just pick buried empires or plasma events or petrified past or petrified type. We could just do 2 hours talking about giants, and I could just show you, the 1,000+ articles I have on giants.
Well, we'll do that for sure.
We could do anything, and if there's some specific narrowed topic, I can bring actual material in and we can dive into material, whatever it is that you are more interested in.
We're in.
100%.
We're down. I love this. Hidden history is one of my favorite subjects, man. One of my favorite subjects, dude.
So yeah, like we mentioned, the subjects on this, I have a playlist on my YouTube where you can find a lot of those things specifically broken down. Anomalous America's kind of my bread and butter. There's 20 episodes of that. I have my radium series. We talked a little bit about that, whether it's advanced aircraft, anti-gravitics, healing springs, the elixir of life, on and on and on. There's a lot there to chew on. So, again, for you, if I'm fortunate enough to be back on, we should narrow it down, and I'll bring all the material you want.
Brother, I'm in, dude. We're down. We're in, dude. We'd love to have you back. That'd be great. Did I already just ask you where they can find you again?
Yeah, so it's 1_analog_9 on all social media. My YouTube channel is like my baby right now, and there's over 200 videos. So tons to chew on. If you want a specific frame of topics, you can check out the playlists. I would always say start with Anomalous America episode 1 Alaska, and that'll kind of really set the tone for what my channel is all about.
All right, let's get into it. Here we go. Breakdown of this really great episode, Hidden History, Mud Floods, Tataria.
What's going on with your hat, bro?
Why? What's wrong
Yeah,
with
it's
it?
just okay,
I like it.
Couldn't see your eyes at all. It was, you had it
Okay,
like
let's
down
get
there.
into it. What'd you guys think?
Dude, empires on empires.
Empires upon empires.
We need when we travel or when we tour, we gotta ask.
We
and be
gotta
like,
look
hey,
at some of these.
yeah.
We gotta find Chinese walls in Montana,
Oh
dog.
yeah, some of this shit is like why? How have I missed that? You
Yeah.
know, like a 6,000-foot building.
I
or
need
whatever
to
you said?
travel more.
If we ever hit up Mississippi, are we going to the wall?
Yeah, we're gonna go to the freaking wall.
Yeah, I need to see that wall.
You think anything? I'm not. I love Analog. Great guy. Good episode. Very interesting. One of my favorite discussions.
Another guy that knows his shit, man. I
Knows
like
his
that. I
shit.
love those people that when you can ask them just about damn near anything and they can come up with something to say.
You got
I love
really
it.
southern right there too. Didn't he? Damn near
That
anything.
happens sometimes, yeah.
So once in a while. I thought it was great. I mean, I want to go look at underground cities, dude. I want to find some underground
Well, it
cities.
sounds like it's hard to get to, right?
Dude,
From what he's saying. Like,
Let's get some nunchucks, a couple guns, some lights, and let's go look at this LA.
do you think nunchucks really do anything? I'm
No,
not-
but
yeah.
dude, I just want to like
There has to be
swing them
some-
around
hold up.
when lizard homeless people try to come after us.
There has to be like a legit nunchucks warrior out there.
I don't think I was doing some
I think
reading.
if you got
apparently.
hit by a nunchuck, it would hurt.
Apparently, they were more of like a ceremonial kind of. I don't know. I was reading about it the other day, and
Yeah, I mean, like ancient Asian karate, martial arts is not doing very well right now with this new movement of MMA and jujitsu.
oh no, yeah. It says
Yeah.
using nunchucks for self-defense in real-life scenarios is genuinely not the best option.
Okay, all right. I mean, dude, Bruce Lee just made us love that stuff. I'm like, what the?
yeah, I'm glad he's not around today, honestly, to
Have to defend
yeah, have
himself.
to defend all that.
Yeah, like would he be the Steven Seagal?
I think what it would be like
chunky
is-
defending his movies.
I think it would be like remember in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where Brad Pitt just kind of kicks him into a car door, you know? Like, I
the
think-
Bruce Lee family got pissed.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I think it would be something like you'd see a UFC guy just like kick him into a wall or something because he's a tiny fella,
He's a tiny fella, bro.
a freak athlete though. I mean, genuine world class athlete.
You know, it wasn't tiny. Petrified Animal Mountains.
It was huge.
Huge, dude.
I got to see some of that for myself. though.
I
I'm
mean,
with
dude,
I'm
yeah,
with
you could
I
see
wanna
that.
it. I want to go
Some
see
of
it.
them is some of it's obviously been distorted. Like there's that one lizard head that looks in the cell. It was like, look at this. I'm like, that's a little too obvious. I feel like if that was real, we would have seen that before. But I'm telling you, man, the world is a lot more interesting than everybody wants you to know. And like, dude, how crazy is it? Is like this as he explained, and later Xavier asked again that this was you're gonna see that back-to-back episodes. Xavier checking back in,
No, it's
checking out,
completely
thinking
different.
about like, oh, dude, I can't wait to get this porn star on the Scum and King. Oh shit, the show's going on. Hey, I know the word Atlantis, so I'm gonna ask it.
Okay, but wait up.
My favorite part of the show is when you ask a question they just answered, and then it begins to say, and you see panic set into your face. And it's like, hey, dude, we just talked about that.
But we didn't. You said,
Johnny, you rule on that. Did we?
Yeah, he had mentioned that. It wasn't as bad as the one in the last episode, but it was. Yeah.
Well, you mean the one where we're gonna put out after?
Well, the one with
Olga.
Olga.
Olga. Yeah. Ola.
which
yeah.
one was that? What did I ask there? That
I
was
forget
stubble.
what the question was, but she literally answered it, and you asked
No.
it again.
No.
Yeah, she
I
just-
remember.
That's what
She-
you do too. You go, no. Well, no.
I remember because she said archons, not Anunnaki.
You
I
said-
said
She
you
literally
said
said
Anunnaki,
Anunnaki.
and she had said that
She
a few
literally
times, yeah.
talked Anunnaki. She almost
Like right
at the
at the
beginning
beginning,
mentioned it all the time, and then you're like, what do you think? You think it was
'cause
Anunnaki?
sometimes I get confused on who are the archons, the
Yeah,
fallen angels,
it's
the
confusing.
Anunnaki. Sometimes
you
I
don't
want
need
to
to be
know.
confused because she mentioned all of them.
Yeah, it's confusing when you tune out and you're fighting sleep,
Not
and then
fighting
you
sleep.
check in, and then try to act like you're paying attention. Man, I thought it was a great episode.
Yes.
I'm into all of it.
Yes.
I'm into all of it, and I think he's right. It just gets into like there's just so many layers to this this onion. I don't want to call it a rotten onion, but it's just so many layers of this onion. You just keep thinking you're peeling off layers, and then there's more layers.
I'm a big fan of what he's doing with the newspaper. I mean, I'm a big believer in that kind of research. Just doing it yourself, going out and finding primary sources for history.
So I forgot to ask him, Johnny, and you would know. How does he find these articles?
Well,
there's so many
digitized microfiche is what I think it is. Like, you ever heard of microfiche, microfilm? It's these. What they would do in the old days is scan newspapers onto these tiny little film strips that you could go to the library, and then they'd have like this machine that magnified the little film strips, and you could go through their archives of newspapers.
See, but that's what I mean. He's going
and it's all been digitized, and then machine learning, something like that, has scanned it all and digitized the words so that you could type in like World's Fair at 19 whatever the fuck, and then every reference of that in the newspapers in their archive would come up. Then you could be taken directly to the pages or PDFs or whatever they are.
That's a lot of work they did back then for that.
Yeah, well, yeah, back then they had this like individually. I'm sure there was a machine that probably like photographed the papers and individual pages, but yeah, that was. But I remember doing that when I was a kid, having to go do, when doing projects and stuff. My library still had microfilm.
The fiche?
Microfiche, yeah.
Microfiche.
Oh, you remember that?
Oh yeah, dude. It was crazy. That was doom scrolling at that point. Right? Going through the microfiche. Hey, guys, if you want to see Sam live, go to SamTripoli.com on Tuesday. I will be at the Hollywood. I would be at the Hollywood Comedy Store celebrating Felipe Esparza's birthday, and it's gonna be a packed show. Nothing but bangers. So grab your tickets; it will sell out. Then on the 20th, we haven't put out we have to upload it. The date, the 20th. Now we're gonna do Sam Tripoli and Friends, and then the 21st, we're gonna be Eddie Bravo, myself, Xavier Guerrero, and then we're gonna be at Broadbrook. Go up, dude, and that's on the 22nd. Again, Ting for Hat, and then Swarm Tank, and then finally Kansas City, Missouri, the Comedy Club. Daddy's hanging. Daddy's banging, bro. Go to SamTripoli.com. So much more. Listen, as you know, we're constantly working. The new episode, the new issue of Chaos Twins is beginning to be created. I went over the scripts yesterday again.
Oh, you already got scripts and everything.
Yeah, we got the script, and we, as I talked about in the past to you guys, both here and previously recorded. But this episode, this issue, this cover right here, will most likely no longer exist.
This is the one limited edition. Yeah, this is the one of the bear.
Don't say I'm not happy about it. So I've had to express that. They did a great job. It is a great issue. Great writing, great illustration. Very blessed. Chaos Twins episode 2 is in motion. And so go check. And based on some of the stuff we talked about with Olga today, Ola, excuse me, Ola, I think we might put it in the second episode. I mean, like a little bit of that stuff. So I'll get into that. Guys, listen, I know I put out a lot of free content. I do a lot, and I enjoy doing it for you. But I have to make a living off of premium content. And so if you can support your boy, that'd be great. Just go to SamTripoli.com, click the premium content. $8 a month, you get all my stuff. And I'm giving out episodes, and I'm working, my web guy, God bless him, he got married. Congratulations. Wonderful dude. He's been on like his honeymoon, so I haven't been able. I'm going to start live streaming premium content to SamTripoli.com. We are just waiting to put that together. If you love Rockfin, it's $15 for all of the content. 400 creators, all there for $15. $15 making you holla.
Look at that lineup.
$15 make you holla. Okay, and that's it. Go back to SamTripoli.com. Keep going. Premium content, Cash Daddies, getting into this wild west of voting. I mean, of investing in the stock market t-shirts available. I got more t-shirts coming. The Bang Bang Pow t-shirt. I don't know why it's not colored. Click it. Why isn't that colored? It's supposed to be colored.
We don't say colored anymore, Sam.
Yeah. Why isn't it a minority? Go back.
Oh, dude, that killed.
Go back. Listen, our affiliates program is like, I'm working with people I really like who are great people. I'll go to SamTripoli.gold, use the promo code tinfoil, and get in with the wolf pack. Precious metals sent to your house as little as $50 a month. Hedge yourself against inflation and this fractional reserve banking, which is going to destroy all of us. Rife Technologies, learn. It's a great way to get centered, dude. Why use it? Go down. Okay, it's great for groups. It's great for everything. It's great for therapy. It's great for children. It's great for plants. It's great for everybody. Get it, dude. Rife Technologies. Then our good friend AquaCure Hydrogen Brown Gas. We love him very much. Get some new nitrogen. Get some hydrogen into your life, bro. Get some hydrogen in your life. Then our good friends at Harley Ray. That's right, Harley Ray. The best in crystals and candles and everything. Oh my. Okay, just go there. They have the best website, the best products, and you can get a discount by using Swarm 15% off your order. Come on now. Come on. And then obviously Chemical Free Body. I love the Alpha Brain, Alpha Energy. I took it today. I get supplements all the time. I'm going to be thinking about making our own supplements, guys. Nice. Thinking about making our own supplements. So we're very excited about that. And what else? And then, Joel Staley, get you in shape, dude. There's no reason why you can't be in shape. He'll work around with you. And I can't recommend the guy enough. When I actually listened to him, I got in shape. And now I'm a fat ass. I got to get back to working out, fasting. Look at that, dude. I want to be shredded. I just got to dedicate myself.
I'm in it deep right now, dude. I'm really going hard.
What are you doing?
Just a lot of, just healthy eating and working out.
What are you doing?
What do you mean? Just the normal thing, working out and eating.
Guys, go to EMF Rock. Use the promo code tinfoil. I have to figure out what is our link there. I will get that fixed real quick. So that's it, dude. Love you guys. Listen, all the telegrams, the zeros, the Nuke Social, all there. You can meet up with people, like-minded people. Go to SamTripoli.com. You're never going to have to worry about where I am my shadow band or anything like that. All the audio's there, all the videos there, everything's there. Come get some. Just go to whitenigga.com and make it happen. Anything else?
Lord. What's up? Hit that like button, subscribe, and go check out We Don't Smoke the Same. We just had Eddie Bravo, and he went deep down the 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu rabbit hole, so head over there.
I'm on Twitter at Johnny Woodard, and I'm bored. So
all right,
tweet me crazy shit for Broken Sam, please.
That sounds like nudity, everybody.
Or that. Yeah, of course nudity. Of course.
Enjoy these highlights.
Here's a clip from the latest Broken Sim.
This is Representative Thomas Massey. He's one of the few politicians I have a lot of respect for. And he's on here talking about, well, I'm just going to play it. If you don't know, AIPAC, that's the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. That's the one thing you need to know. He's on Tucker Carlson. This is one thing you need to know before you watch this. AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee.
They're not registered.
Is there any other Republican who has your views on this?
Well, I have Republicans who come to me on the floor and say, I wish I could vote with you today. Yours is the right vote, but I would just take too much flack back home. And I have Republicans who come to me and say, that's wrong what AIPAC is doing to you. Let me talk to my AIPAC person. By the way, everybody but me has an AIPAC person.
What does that mean, an AIPAC person?
It's like your babysitter, your AIPAC babysitter, who is always talking to you for AIPAC. They're probably a constituent in your district, but they are, firmly embedded in AIPAC. And
every member has something like this?
I don't know how it works on the Democrat side. But that's how it works on the Republican side. And when they come to DC, you go have lunch with them, and they've got your cell number, and you have conversations with them. So I've had
that's absolutely crazy.
I've had 4 members of Congress say, I'll talk to my AIPAC person And it's literally what we call them, my APAC guy. I'll talk to my APAC guy and see if I can get him to, dial those ads back.
Why have I never heard this before?
It doesn't benefit anybody. Why would they want to tell their constituents that they've basically got a buddy system with somebody who's representing a foreign country? It doesn't benefit the congressman for people to know that, so they're not going to tell you that.
Right, dude. People are waking up.
That's mind blowing, though.
Left and right.
They have handlers, Israeli handlers.
You know what I've learned?
Every congressman except Thomas Massey.
My biggest issue is I'm blunt force. I've been listening to a lot of comics talk about this, but I've learned. I was listening to a great conversation. I'm not going to say who it was because I don't want to infer that this is about them. But I've decided like what people really like in comedy is nihilism. They like the comedian to not have emotions in it and just talk about it from a comedy point of view, which is a great example of like what Ari says he does with his comedy when he was on Howie Mandel and he went viral with that thing because he put Howie in his place.
I don't know what
Ari
you're
has
talking
a
about.
very
Is that
nihilist.
recent?
Yeah, it went very viral.
Dude, I'm so.
But Howie
I
is
miss so much
very,
stuff.
I mean, like Ari is very nihilist about everything. He doesn't care. He doesn't, and he'll talk about anything. And he listed all the stuff they say we talk about. One was,
this is the Israeli.
but it was a whole thing. He's like, but he's just.
That's what this is about, though? He said he wouldn't talk about things or something?
No, he said he doesn't care. And his job is to make light of everything. And I was listening to some comedians on the ride over, and that's what they were doing. But I could also tell they were on the right side of the discussion, right? But they present it as nihilistic, like they don't care. They're just making fun of it. And that to me is the way you go when you want to get as big of an audience as you can. I'm not shitting on it. I'm just saying that's what I've noticed.
Do you think you might convince more people that way too? Like, I know that's not what you're aiming for, is to win,
I can't
win
do it.
souls. But
I'm blunt force.
Yeah.
I wear my emotions on my sleeve, and I'm in head of the game every time. And then everybody will get to that point where they realize what is going on.
Well, it seems like there's always been this kind of struggle at the heart of comedy, right? It's either you're like a Hicks type or you're a Seinfeld. You know what I mean? Like there's either like you're in it.
No, you're either a shit talker or you're a clown.
Yeah, you got your categories. But I'm saying like at the very soul of comedy, it feels like either you are that nihilist thing who's just about career and getting the jokes, or you're
shitting on everything.
Some people can't not do it. You know what I mean? And
yeah, I mean, there's just guys who can't. Like Jimmy Dore is a guy who wears his emotions on his sleeve, and it's why he's done really well. But it's very hard to get to that place that Jimmy Dore has. He has to put out multiple shows every day, all the time.
Very funny. You have to be very.
Yeah,
very
he's
funny.
good. Like, dude, he's the best in the political. He's an absolute murder comic. But he's the gold standard of political comedy, in my humble opinion. That's my honest belief.
Well, it's a talent to be able to go and go and go like that too, man.
You know, when I watched his last special when he's getting ready for it, I go, dude, that I felt like I was watching Bill Hicks, and I'm not, and that wasn't just me being nice.
Well, he loves Hicks. I know he was complimented by that.
Yeah, I mean, it was like watching Hicks. He's that good. And
do you want to hit this? Is this interesting? Like, is this?
Speaking of culture, like we were just saying, there were 3 Jews sitting here. Have you felt the? Are you feeling
what the fucking? We're back in
the love,
dude. We're back, center of attention again. I love it.
Really?
Oh yeah. We were a joke before. Now we're taken seriously. Who else wants some? Who else wants some?
You seeing the positive in this?
I see what you're saying.
This is so funny because even though Ari isn't young, I don't know. I think Ari's 49 now, or is he 50?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Up there. Yeah.
But he's like my age, but we're not Howie's age. Howie is
he's a different
70
generation.
something.
No, he's a club comic like the 70s.
He came out. Yeah. He's been famous since the 80s.
Dangerfield, Young Comic
dude,
Special.
Think about that. He's been famous since the 80s.
Long time.
40 years.
Yeah, dude, I used to watch that movie where he played a monster in that
He
kid's
was great.
bed.
I mean, dude, Howie Mandel but it's like he's again the germaphobe that we've talked about before. We haven't watched this yet.
This clip?
Yeah.
No, I haven't. I haven't even seen this.
Okay, watch it. And it's just
yeah, we're back. Before we were just some like joke, like I remember the tribe, like little light things. Now people take us seriously.
Seriously?
Go ahead, keep pushing the students. See when we push back.
It's horrible.
It's not horrible. It doesn't happen. It's statistically irrelevant. It should be on the news too much. None of it's really happening.
Stop.
Are you
I've
fucking
been all
kidding?
over
So this thing that Ari's doing right now, which like Ari is, I remember one time we were on Punch Drunk and we were doing something where we were all seeing who could add it up the fastest, this equation, and Ari lapped us. Like, he's super smart.
We go deep, homeboy. Aaron, open your mind. Drink from the fountain of knowledge. There's lizard people everywhere. That's some interdimensional shit. Wake up, Aaron.
This is only the beginning.
Dude, you just blew my mind. Tinfoil hack.